Hey folks, this is the ninth video in my series on developing automated Google slide decks using Google Apps Script. In this video, we are going to be learning how to create an automated dynamic data table in Google Slides. So what you're looking at here is what our end result will be. This method differs from other methods which I've used in the past in that instead of using a screenshot or a traditional table, I've learned and utilized individual text boxes so that it provides the visual of a data table, except that it's not a data table. So all of these elements here are plotted distinctly so that they look like they work together, but really they're individual aspects that are coming from a Google Sheet. So to give you a refresh on where we're at, we have a Google Sheet with some data that we have scraped from profootballreference.com. So we wrote a Python script in Google's Collaboratory Notebook that leveraged Beautiful Soup 4 in order to extract the last 5 seasons of data for 4 teams that we defined in this variable here. You are looking at the results of that work where we cleaned the data to remove some extraneous columns that we did not want to use so that we had this defined set that will allow us to create slides for each team. To this point in our development, we have learned how to automate the creation of a deck, learned how to move it into a folder. We have learned to append slides and how to insert text boxes. We are now going to be learning how to create an iteration loop that will allow us to extract values from the Google Sheet and then plot them in a very basic stylized manner on our slide. In the last lesson, which, mind you, all of the videos in this series are linked up in the playlist in the description. So if you have not been following along and you would like to, you can check them out there and get caught up to speed. In our last video, we developed a custom function called names that allowed us to extract the unique values from our sheet. Additionally, we created a function called data collector that allowed us to extract values using the sheet that we have with all of our football data. So right now, when we leverage our names function and our data collector function, we are able to create unique sets of data for each team. So you can see we now have values for the Philadelphia Eagles, and then we have the data, values for the Cowboys, and the data, so on and so forth. So you will need those functions in order to do this lesson. Additionally, we are going to need a custom function called converter, which will take a number and translate it from inches into points. So we are going to be referencing the format options menu. So when we click on an element in a slide deck, we can go up here to more and then select format options, and then we will have access to the X and Y values for position, as well as the size or the width and height for the text boxes or the shapes. So when you're working in AppScript, you can't enter these values in as they currently are because AppScript is structured in points while Slides is structured in inches. So make sure that you have this converter function because I will be using it throughout our script. Cool. So with that out of the way, we are going to resume our development within the the creator slide function. We will be closing these shoulders here, or these windows, or whatever you want to call them. You'll notice we have these down arrows. So we've been adding comments all along so that we could clean up our script. Because you'll notice as I scroll down, we do have quite a bit of stuff going on here, and much of it will not be necessary for this lesson. So we're going to close this window, we're going to close this one. We're going to keep this open because we are going to use slide again. So we're going to be using the same logic that we used for our title and our subtitle. So we are going to want to have slide exposed. That way you know what we are referencing. I'm going to close up slide title, and I'm going to close up, you know what, we'll keep that open because we're going to add some stuff at the bottom. But we're going to begin by creating some development variables. So we are going to start on line 2. We're going to hit tab and we're going to add 2 slashes and we're going to say development variable. And we're going to hit enter and we're going to hit tab and then we're going to declare a variable called name. And we're going to set that equal to a string, which is why we have single quotes or double quotes, whatever you've been using throughout your script. And then we're going to use one of the names that comes from our sheet. So I'm just going to select the first one, which is the Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to paste that in there and we're going to add a semicolon. So this is going to get commented out once we finish our development. We're going to add it as an argument for the creator slide function so that we can dynamically pass in values. So for example, when I open up my execution logs, you'll see that the Philadelphia Eagles appear here using the value from our names function. That's what we're going to pass into the creator slide function so that we know what data we want to collect as well as what team we are working with. But for the time being, we don't want to loop through everything because we're developing, right? So we just want to kind of see how things go and make sure it looks the way that we want it to before we move it into production. We're going to go down to the last line here and we're going to hit enter twice, left arrow 4 times, and we're going to add 2 comments. So your new comment should line up like this. That way we have the ability to close the section if we want to. So we are going to begin by using all caps and declaring data collection. So this is where we are going to use our data collector function in order to extract data. So we are also going to be using that name variable that we just created to get our data. So we're going to declare a variable called data collection, which is going to be equal to data collector. So if that's confusing, you can come up with another name for data collection if you want to. I did it that way so that it was kind of synonymous with data collector, which might be a bad thing. I apologize if it's confusing. It's just the way that it worked for me. So I'm going to pass our name variable in there, which you can see is the first argument of our data collector function, and then a sheet ID. I'm using sheet ID 0 because I am in sheet 1. If you are using a Google Sheet that you created, your first sheet is probably going to be 0. But if you're using a sheet that is not the first sheet, then you'll have your GID up top here. So you'll just want to copy whatever the number is that comes after GID. We're going to go back to our script, enter in whatever your sheet ID is, go to the right, add a semicolon, and then hit enter twice. We are going to hit the left arrow twice, and we're going to add in another comment, and we're going to use all caps again because this is a full section, and we are going to call this iteration variables. We're going to hit enter, we're going to hit tab, we're going to add in a comment, we're going to hit space, and we are going to call this y points for iteration. We're going to hit enter, we're going to hit tab, and we're going to declare a variable called value capital Y. And we're going to set this equal to 1.37, and we're going to add a semicolon. We're going to hit enter, and we're going to declare another variable, which is going to be called increment capital Y. And we're going to set that equal to 0.35. I'm going to explain these variables in a minute, so let's just enter them in, and then we will debrief. I'm going to hit enter twice. I'm going to hit the left arrow twice. I'm going to add in another set of slashes so that we can declare our X points for iteration. We're going to hit enter. We're going to hit tab. I'm going to scroll down a little bit, so if there is anything that you want to look at on screen right now, pause the video and then hit resume. I'm also going to close the subtitle head for now because I don't need it. So I'm going to declare a variable called value capital X, and I am going to set that equal to 0.04, add a semicolon, I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to declare a variable called increment capital X, and I'm going to set that equal to 1.44, and I'm going to add a semicolon. I also noticed that my increment Y doesn't have one, so I added it. The semicolon doesn't matter. If you don't have it, doesn't, it's not going to do anything. But I add it sometimes just because that's the way that I learned. We're going to hit enter. We're going to hit the left arrow twice. We're going to hit 2 slashes, and then we're going to declare value for width and height. We're going to hit enter, tab, and then we're going to declare value for value capital W width, and we're going to set that equal to 1.85. The semicolon, hit enter, var value capital H height is equal to 0.5, I believe. 1 second to make sure. Actually, it's going to be 0.35. Sorry about that. Okay, cool. So let's discuss what we did here. Please keep note of the value 1.37, 0.04, 1.85, and 0.35. I'm going to go back to my template slide here. You'll notice that for this x coordinate, I have 0.04 and 1.37. So when I go back to my script, check out what we have. 0.4 for value x, 1.37 for value y. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using a for loop in order to plot each individual data point for each quote unquote row and column. And the reason that we're calling this quote unquote rows and columns is because they are no longer structured that way anymore, right? So when they appear in a spreadsheet like this, or when they appear on our slide like this, you and I would refer to these as rows and columns. But the data structure, if we open up our execution log, is no longer in a rows and columns format. They are now in two-dimensional arrays, which are also known as list of lists. And the reason that we know that these are two-dimensional arrays or list of lists is because of these square brackets here. So what's happening is this square bracket and this square bracket denote a list of lists. So each individual square bracket, like this and this, are individual lists. So we no longer have rows, we have lists. And within those lists, we have points. So we have year and team and W and L and T, which we have previously referred to as column A, B, C, D, and so on. But now they are in arrays or lists, which means that they are in a zero indexed environment. So this list is the first list, also known as the first array, which means that it is represented by a 0. This is the second list, which means that it is represented by a 1. The reason for that is because the arrays begin at 0. So when you're counting, you start 0, 1, 2 rather than 1, 2, 3. So in order to access each individual list and each individual point, we are going to have to loop through each instance and each access point. So we're going to have to access each list, and then we're going to have to go 0, 1, 2, 3, so on. Then we're going to have to go to list 1, aka list 2, and go 0, 1, 2, 3. So as we do that, we are going to want to collect the value and then plot the text box and dynamically set the text. That's how we're going to accomplish this. So you can see that our x value does not change in our quote unquote first column, right? So keep your eye on this x coordinate here. This is 0.04. This is 0.04. Same thing. You can see that that x coordinate does not change as I click through. Now keep your eye on the y coordinate. We're at 3.12, and then it becomes 2.77, and then it becomes 2.42, and then it becomes 2.07, and so on and so forth. The reason for that is because the y-axis is a vertical axis. So as we go further down, the y-coordinate needs to change. Now, please keep your eye on the x-coordinate again. Notice that once I start clicking across, the x-coordinate will change and the y does not. So currently, when we select year, we're on 0.04. When we click on team, we're at 1.48, 2.92, and so on. But you'll notice that that y is not changing even though the x is. So we need to come up with some type of logic system in order to plot these boxes so that we have a place to put each value in our two-dimensional array, aka our rows and columns. So that's what we've done in here. And these width and height values are what is telling the slide app what width and height to make the text box that we are going to write to. So this value can pretty much be whatever you want it to. The only consideration is that the width and the height might impact how much text you have. So you might end up, so for example, if I just kind of start typing in a bunch of stuff here, you'll notice that as more text is flowing in, that text is now like it's spilling over, right? So just be mindful as you start plotting out how wide and high your text box needs to be is based upon how much text you're passing through. Cool. So with that out of the way, we are going to resume and we're going to hit enter, we're going to hit tab, and you know what? We are going to hit left arrow 4 times, I guess. But basically you just want to make sure that this lines up with your iteration variables. We're going to add double slash in here. I'm going to scroll down and we're going to hit space, and we are going to add in data. So we're going to hit enter, we're going to hit tab. So we are going to begin our loop. So we're going to loop through data collection, enter, tab. So we're going to use for with an open parentheses, and then we're going to use I in data collection. We're going to go to the right, we're going to hit space, we're going to add curly brackets, we're going to hit enter. We're going to add 2 more slashes because we're going to add in another comment. And we're going to say loop for horizontal values. So we're going to add in another loop. So we're going to do for parentheses j in data collection. And we are going to go to the right, and we're going to hit space, and we're going to add in another set of curly brackets, and we're going to hit enter. I'm going to add a little bit of space here so that my for loop is at the very top so that you can just focus on this, because this is going to get a little bit, there's just a lot of functions that we're calling or methods that we're calling here, so I just want to make it easy for you to see. So we're going to add in 2 slashes for a comment, and we're going to add a try catch for error correction. We're going to hit enter, we're going to hit tab, and we're going to do try, and we're going to have an open curly bracket. We're going to go to the right, we're going to hit enter, and then we're going to type catch, and we're going to add in another curly bracket. We're going to hit left, we're going to hit up, and then we're going to hit the left arrow, and we're going to go back inside of that try block, and we're going to hit enter. And now we're going to use a conditional if to identify the quote unquote first row. We're going to go to the right, we're going to hit enter, we're going to hit tab, and we're going to say if open parentheses I space double equal sign space 0. I'm going to go to the right of our parentheses, we're going to hit space, and we're going to use curly brackets again. We're going to hit enter. We are going to declare a variable called shape, and we're going to set that equal to slide.insert shape open parentheses, and then we're going to use capital S slides app dot shape type dot text underscore box. Now all of that is case sensitive, so make sure that you have the correct capitalization for each of those values. We're going to use a comma, and now we're going to start entering in our X value, followed by our Y value, followed by our width, and followed by our height. So I'm going to scroll back up a little bit. So if there's anything you want to look at on the screen, pause it now to make sure all of your syntax aligns with mine, and then you can resume. So I'm going to scroll up now, and we're going to be using the iteration variables now, along with our converter function. So we're going to hit space, and we're going to use converter, and we're going to have open parentheses, and then we're going to pass in our value X. We're going to go to the right of the converter function. We're going to add in a comma. We're going to hit space, and we're going to use that converter function again. We're going to have an open parentheses, and we're going to pass in our value with a capital Y. We're going to go to the right. We're going to add a comma. We're going to use that converter function again, and we are going to use our value capital W width. We're going to hit the right arrow. We're going to add a comma. We're going to hit space, and we're going to use converter one last time, and we're going to pass in our value height. We're going to go to the right. We're going to add in a semicolon, and we're going to hit enter. Now we're going to declare another variable called text capital R range. We're going to use a space, hit equal sign, space, and we're going to reference that shape variable, and we're going to use dot get capital T text. We're going to have an open parentheses. We're going to go to the right. We're going to add a semicolon, and we're going to hit enter. Now we're going to start entering our text and stylizing it. So we're going to reference that text range variable. we're going to use a dot method. We're going to set text with an open parentheses, and then we're going to reference our data collection variable, and we're going to use square brackets, and we're going to pass in I, and then we're going to use square brackets, and we're going to pass in J. We're going to go to the right of our parentheses, and we're going to use dot get capital T text capital S style, and we're going to open up a parentheses. So basically, when we use I and J, we are looping through all of the values. Now, I'm also going to add in, I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to do logger.log, and we're going to open up a parentheses, and we're going to do data collection. Now, it's very important that you use data collection because that is the variable that we're using and not data collector. So I apologize because I should have been more specific with that variable. So I apologize if you're experiencing some errors. That could be a reason for it. We're going to use data collection, square bracket I. We're going to go to the right. We're going to use a square bracket, and we're going to use J. And we're going to use a semicolon. So hopefully we're going to have the ability to see these values in our execution log once we start running our script. We're going to hit enter, and then we are going to use, we're going to apply some style elements to our text. So we're going to use dot set font size, and we're going to use an open parentheses, and we're going to use 10. Now I apologize, I'm getting a red arrow here, so I think our logger statement is messing that up. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight our logger.log data collection I and J. We're going to copy it, and we're going to delete it. And we're going to remove that line in there so that now you can see that red set font size is gone. We're going to go to the text range line. So if you're following along, that's line 63. We're going to hit enter, and we're going to add that logger statement in there. That way it will log out, and then we can see it. So we might want to remove that at a later date. So let's actually go back. Let's hit enter, and let's say all caps logger statement, and we'll tab that in so that if we want to, we can remove it later. Cool. So in text range.set text style.get text style, we're going to dot set font size to 10, dot set capital F font family to open parentheses, single quote Arial. Go to the right, hit enter, dot set capital B bold. This is a Boolean method, so it is either true or false, so we're going to pass in true. I'm going to go to the right, we're going to add a semicolon, we're going to hit enter, and then we are going to use text range again, and we are going to do dot get paragraph style. We're going to open up a parentheses, we're going to hit dot, and then we are going to set paragraph alignment, and we are going to open up a parentheses, and we're going to use slides app dot paragraph alignment dot all caps center. So this is going to center our text. We're going to hit enter, and we are going to finish off by referencing our value x, and we're going to set that plus equal to our increment x variable. We're going to add a semicolon, and now we're done. So basically what this value x plus equal sign to increment x is doing is it's just adding the increment x to the value x. So every time that this runs and it gets to this line, it will add to that 0.04. So that's how we get it to increase by 1.44. So when I go back to my slide, you'll notice here we're at 0.04, and then we're at 1.48, and then we're at 2.92. The reason for that is because each time that x is being incremented by 1.448, and that's how we get the illusion of the values going across and creating a row and column type of feeling. Cool. So now with our try, we're going to add an else statement. So we're going to hit enter, and we're going to type in else, and we're going to add square brackets like that, and we're going to hit enter. And then we're just going to copy all of the text that we just entered in here, right? So we're going to copy everything all the way from var shape down to increment x. We're going to copy that, and we're going to put it into our else. And all we're going to do is highlight set bold, and we're going to comment that out. So you can either add 2 slashes at the beginning of it, or you can highlight it and then use command slash if you're on a Mac, and I think it's Control slash if you're on Windows. My apologies, I don't use a Windows machine, so I don't know what that would be. Cool. So now we are going to go to the bottom of our else, and then we're going to hit the down arrow, and now you can see we're in our try. And then we're going to go to our catch, and we're going to go down one row to our for-j loop. And we're going to hit enter, and now we are going to add in a comment, and we are going to say reset the x position, and we're going to hit enter. We're going to hit tab, and we're going to declare a variable of value capital X is set to 0.04, and we're going to add a semicolon, and then we're going to hit enter, and we're going to hit the left arrow twice, and we are going to shift the Y position, and we are going to say value Y is plus equal sign increment Y. So basically what happens is anytime that we are setting the X value, we're going to have to reset it so that we can continue to increment to it. Additionally, we are going to need to increment the Y value so that we can go Y, 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 like this, and add to it. So that's what this logic is doing. We're doing plus equal sign. It is adding to and then redefining the variable as such. So we're going to hit save, and we're going to try to see if this works. So we're going to go up top here. We are going to hit run. We're going to cross our fingers. You can see the slide is being created. Now the deck is being created. If you see this, then the old deck was deleted. The deck has been moved to the parent folder. We have a new ID. And then check it out. We're now getting year, team, win, loss, tie, coaches. Then we're moving to 2023, Philadelphia Eagles, so on and so forth. So you can kind of see how we're getting each individual value in here from 2019 to 20 to 21 to 22, 23, and so on. So that's what was happening when we were using our in our for loop, when we were referencing I and J. It was defining all the values that we needed to plot. So what we have here in this logger is this is what we were then setting text to. And additionally, we were incrementing our value X and our value Y's based upon this logic down here. So anytime that this ran, we were incrementing the X. Basically, it was figuring out where you were in the loop. And then once we got down here, it would increment the Y. So now we're going to go check it out and see if we have the right slides in there. Got it plotted perfectly. So in conclusion, we learned how to plot our values dynamically using iteration. So you can see we have stylized bold header, and then we have all of our data plotted in row and column formatting. And we've collected that from our sheet and used logic in our app script to accomplish our goal. So in the next video, we're going to learn about how to add lines so that we can kind of finish off this lesson and add in that last element. I know this one was a heavy one, so I hope you found it helpful. As usual, feel free to reach out in the comments section or send me an email if you're having any difficulties. The playlist for this series is linked in the description. So if you want to catch up on what we've done and what we will be doing, that's a good place to follow along. Anyway, I hope you'll check out the next one.